Hello, my friends. Today we are going to explore the fascinating story of one of the most powerful and unforgettable women in history, Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. But this is not just another history lesson. It is a journey through time, filled with power, ambition, love, betrayal, and dramatic moments that changed the world forever. Cleopatra's life was full of challenges, incredible decisions, and unforgettable events that make her story feel like a real-life movie. Known for her intelligence, confidence, and remarkable leadership, Cleopatra became one of the most famous figures in history. Her story is not only exciting but also inspiring, showing us how courage and determination can shape a person's destiny. So, sit back, relax, and join me on this amazing adventure. Whether you are here to improve your English or simply enjoy a great story, I promise you will love every moment of this incredible journey. Now, let's travel back more than 2,000 years and discover the extraordinary life of Cleopatra, the legendary Queen of Egypt. Chapter 1. Cleopatra's early life. More than 2,000 years ago, in 69 BCE, a baby girl was born in the magnificent city of Alexandria, Egypt. Her name was Cleopatra VII, and one day, she would become one of the most famous and powerful women the world had ever known. But before she became a queen, she was simply a young girl with big dreams and an extraordinary destiny. Cleopatra was born into the royal Ptolemaic dynasty, a family that had ruled Egypt for many generations. Although they ruled Egypt, her family originally came from Greece. Her ancestor, Ptolemy I, had been one of Alexander the Great's trusted generals. After Alexander's death, Ptolemy became the ruler of Egypt, and his descendants continued to reign for centuries. Because of this, Cleopatra inherited both Greek and Egyptian traditions. Her father was King Ptolemy III, while historians are still uncertain about the identity of her mother. Some believe she was Cleopatra V, but no one knows for sure. Despite this mystery, one thing is certain. Cleopatra grew up surrounded by wealth, luxury, and royal privileges. Inside the grand palace of Alexandria, Cleopatra enjoyed a life that many people could only dream of. She had beautiful clothes, devoted servants, and access to the finest education available. However, life inside the royal family was far from peaceful. The struggle for power was constant, and members of the royal household often fought against one another. In some cases, family members even turned against each other to secure the throne. From a very young age, Cleopatra understood that knowledge was one of the greatest sources of power. Unlike many women of her time, she received an excellent education and dedicated herself to learning. She studied different subjects and became fluent in several languages, including Greek, Egyptian, Latin, and Hebrew. Historians believe she could speak at least 7 languages, an impressive achievement that made her unique among rulers of her era. But Cleopatra's interests went beyond languages. She was deeply curious about the world around her. She studied science, mathematics, literature, philosophy, and politics. She wanted to become more than just a queen wearing a crown. She dreamed of becoming a wise and respected leader who could guide her people with intelligence and strength. Besides her sharp mind, Cleopatra possessed another remarkable gift: her charm. People admired her confidence and graceful personality. It is said that her voice was pleasant and captivating, and she had the ability to make people feel comfortable and important. Her intelligence and charisma would later become some of her greatest strengths. However, her childhood was not free from difficulties. Her father, King Ptolemy III, was not considered a strong ruler. Many Egyptians disliked him because they believed he relied too heavily on Rome and spent too much money. Political unrest often threatened the kingdom, forcing the royal family to face dangerous situations. Sometimes they even had to leave Egypt for their own safety. These experiences taught Cleopatra an important lesson. She realized that ruling a kingdom was not just about wealth and luxury. It required courage, wisdom, and the ability to survive in a world full of enemies and uncertainty. When Cleopatra was around 14 years old, tragedy struck her family. Her mother disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Some historians believe she died, while others suspect she was removed from power. At the same time, her father became seriously ill. Cleopatra understood that major changes were coming, and she knew that her own future would soon be shaped by these events. Although she was still a teenager, she was already preparing herself for leadership. What made Cleopatra different from many rulers was her genuine love and respect for Egypt. Even though she belonged to a Greek dynasty, she embraced Egyptian traditions and culture. In fact, she became the first ruler of her family to learn the Egyptian language. She also presented herself as the goddess Isis, a powerful and beloved figure in Egyptian mythology. As Cleopatra grew into a young woman, she became determined to protect and strengthen her kingdom. She knew that many challenges awaited her. Powerful enemies surrounded her, both inside and outside her family, but she was ready to face whatever came her way, with intelligence, courage, and a strong sense of purpose. Cleopatra stood on the edge of a new chapter in her life. And soon, the young princess would begin her incredible journey to become the Queen of Egypt. Chapter 2. Cleopatra becomes queen. Cleopatra was no ordinary young woman. From the day she was born, destiny had prepared her for greatness. But becoming the Queen of Egypt would not be an easy journey. It would be filled with danger, betrayal, and challenges that would test her courage and intelligence. When Cleopatra was 18 years old, her father, King Ptolemy III, passed away. According to his wishes, Cleopatra would rule Egypt alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy III, who was only 10 years old. In ancient Egypt, it was common for brothers and sisters from the royal family to share power. Sometimes they were even expected to marry to keep the royal bloodline pure. Although they officially ruled together, Cleopatra believed she was far more capable than her young brother. She had spent years studying languages, politics, and history, while Ptolemy III was still just a child. Cleopatra wanted to lead Egypt wisely and strengthen the kingdom, but she quickly realized that sharing power would not be easy. At first, things appeared peaceful. However, powerful advisors surrounding her brother wanted control for themselves. They feared Cleopatra's intelligence and independence. These men believed a young king would be easier to manipulate than a strong and ambitious queen. Soon, tension began to grow inside the palace. Cleopatra and her brother's supporters became rivals, and the struggle for power turned dangerous. Eventually, Cleopatra was forced to leave Alexandria and flee Egypt. The rightful queen suddenly found herself in exile, far away from the palace she had once called home. Imagine the situation. Cleopatra, born into luxury and royalty, now found herself surrounded by uncertainty. She had no throne, no army, and only a small group of loyal followers. Many people would have given up in such circumstances, but Cleopatra was not like most people. Instead of losing hope, she began planning her return. She knew she could not reclaim the throne alone. She needed a powerful ally, and fortune was about to bring one of the most influential men in history to Egypt. At that time, Julius Caesar, the famous Roman general and leader, arrived in Alexandria. Caesar was respected throughout the Roman world. He was a brilliant military commander and one of the most powerful men alive. Cleopatra immediately recognized that his support could change her future, but reaching Caesar was not simple. Her enemies controlled the palace and would never allow her to meet him openly. Once again, Cleopatra showed her intelligence and courage. According to legend, she came up with an extraordinary plan. One night, Cleopatra asked one of her loyal servants to wrap her inside a large carpet or a bundle of cloth. The servant then carried the package into Caesar's residence as a gift. When the bundle was opened, Cleopatra emerged before the surprised Roman leader. Caesar was amazed. Standing before him was a young woman who possessed beauty, confidence, and remarkable intelligence. Cleopatra spoke with grace and wisdom. She explained the difficulties she faced and shared her vision for Egypt's future. Caesar quickly realized that she was far more than just a beautiful queen. She was a natural leader with great ambition. Impressed by her personality and determination, Caesar decided to support her. Together they prepared to challenge Ptolemy III and the advisors who had driven Cleopatra from power. Conflict soon erupted, and a fierce struggle began for control of Egypt. With Caesar's military strength and Cleopatra's determination, their enemies stood little chance. Eventually, Ptolemy I was defeated, and Cleopatra regained her throne. Once again, she became the ruler of Egypt. But Cleopatra's ambitions went beyond simply becoming queen again. She dreamed of restoring Egypt's greatness and making it one of the most respected nations in the world. She understood that strong alliances and wise leadership were essential for the future of her kingdom. Working closely with Julius Caesar, Cleopatra introduced new policies, encouraged trade, and strengthened the relationship between Egypt and Rome. Her goal was not only to survive, but to build a prosperous and powerful nation. The young queen, who had once been forced into exile, had returned stronger than ever. Through intelligence, courage, and determination, Cleopatra had overcome her enemies and secured her place on the throne. But this was only the beginning. A new chapter was about to unfold, one that would bring love, power, and one of the most famous relationships in history, and that relationship would change Cleopatra's life forever. Chapter 3. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Cleopatra had successfully reclaimed her throne, but her journey was far from over. Although she was once again the Queen of Egypt, she understood that ruling such a powerful kingdom required more than courage and intelligence. She needed strong allies, and no ally was more powerful than Julius Caesar. After helping Cleopatra defeat her enemies, Caesar remained in Egypt for some time. Their partnership, which had started because of politics, gradually became much deeper. What began as an alliance soon developed into one of the most famous relationships in history. Cleopatra greatly admired Caesar. He was one of the most respected military leaders in the world, known for his intelligence, bravery, and ability to inspire others. Caesar, in return, was fascinated by Cleopatra. He was impressed not only by her beauty, but also by her sharp mind, confidence, and ambitious spirit. Although there was a large age difference between them, their bond grew stronger with time. Caesar was around 52 years old, while Cleopatra was only 21. Yet they shared a deep understanding and common goals. Both dreamed of building powerful empires and leaving behind a lasting legacy. During his stay in Egypt, Caesar enjoyed spending time with Cleopatra. Together they explored the magnificent city of Alexandria, which was famous for its knowledge, culture, and wealth. They sailed along the Nile River and discussed politics, history, and the future of their kingdoms. Cleopatra proudly introduced Caesar to the wonders of Egypt. She showed him the country's rich traditions, magnificent temples, and advanced civilization. Caesar admired Egypt's beauty and recognized its importance as one of the wealthiest and most influential nations of the ancient world. As their relationship became stronger, an important event changed Cleopatra's life forever. In 47 BCE, she gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy Caesar, but he became widely known as Caesarion, which means Little Caesar. For Cleopatra, the birth of her son represented hope and opportunity. She dreamed that one day Caesarion would unite Egypt and Rome, creating a powerful empire that would bring peace and prosperity to both nations. However, not everyone approved of their relationship. Many people in Rome viewed Cleopatra with suspicion. They feared that the Egyptian queen had too much influence over Caesar. Some Roman politicians believed she wanted to control Rome through him. Rumors spread throughout the empire, and many enemies began criticizing Caesar's close connection with the foreign queen. Eventually, Caesar decided to return to Rome, but instead of leaving Cleopatra behind, he invited her to join him. Always fearless and determined, Cleopatra accepted the invitation. Accompanied by her young son and a grand entourage, she traveled to Rome. Her arrival attracted enormous attention. The Romans were amazed by the wealth and elegance that surrounded the Queen of Egypt. Her golden carriages, exotic animals, and richly dressed servants made a powerful impression on everyone who saw her. Cleopatra stayed in a luxurious villa provided by Caesar. She attended important gatherings, met influential leaders, and became one of the most talked-about figures in Rome. Her unique style and confidence even influenced Roman fashion and culture. Yet, while Cleopatra enjoyed life in Rome, political tensions were increasing. Caesar's power continued to grow, and eventually he declared himself dictator for life. Although his supporters celebrated this decision, many senators became worried. They feared that Caesar had become too powerful and believed he was threatening the traditions of the Roman Republic. Secretly, several senators began planning against him. Then, in 44 BCE, tragedy struck. On the 15th of March, a group of conspirators attacked Julius Caesar inside the Roman Senate. They stabbed him to death, bringing an end to the life of one of history's greatest leaders. The shocking news spread rapidly across Rome. Cleopatra was devastated. She had lost not only her greatest ally, but also the father of her son. More importantly, she realized that her own safety was now at risk. Without Caesar's protection, many powerful Romans viewed her as an outsider and a threat. Understanding the danger, Cleopatra acted quickly. She gathered her servants, her treasures, and her beloved son, Caesarion. Without wasting time, she left Rome and returned to Egypt. Back in Alexandria, Cleopatra refused to let grief destroy her. Although she deeply mourned Caesar's death, she remained determined to protect her kingdom. She focused on strengthening Egypt's economy, improving its military, and maintaining stability throughout the country. She also devoted herself to raising Caesarion. Cleopatra hoped that one day her son would become a wise and powerful ruler. She wanted him to continue the dreams she had once shared with Julius Caesar. But Cleopatra knew that difficult times were still ahead. Rome remained the most powerful force in the world, and new leaders were rising to claim Caesar's place. Egypt would soon need another powerful ally, and before long, destiny would introduce Cleopatra to a man whose name would become forever linked with hers. His name was Mark Antony, and together, they would create one of the greatest love stories the world has ever known. Chapter 4. Cleopatra and Mark Antony. After the death of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra once again found herself facing an uncertain future. She had returned safely to Egypt and continued ruling with wisdom and determination, but she knew that powerful enemies surrounded her. Rome was changing and new leaders were rising. To protect her kingdom, Cleopatra needed another strong ally. Meanwhile, Rome was filled with conflict. Following Caesar's assassination, several powerful men fought for control of the empire. Among them were Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. Together they formed the Second Triumvirate and agreed to rule Rome. However, beneath the surface, mistrust and rivalry already existed. Mark Antony was one of Rome's greatest generals. He was known for his bravery, leadership, and strong personality. Handsome and confident, he was admired by both soldiers and citizens. Antony had heard many stories about Cleopatra, the intelligent and beautiful Queen of Egypt, but the two had never officially met. At the same time, Antony needed Egypt's wealth and resources to support his military campaigns. Cleopatra, on the other hand, wanted to secure Egypt's independence and strengthen her position. Both leaders understood that an alliance could benefit them greatly. Eventually, Mark Antony sent a message inviting Cleopatra to meet him in the city of Tarsus, located in present-day Turkey. He wanted to discuss political matters and establish cooperation between Rome and Egypt. Cleopatra recognized this as a golden opportunity, and she decided to make an unforgettable impression. True to her nature, Cleopatra planned a spectacular entrance. When she arrived in Tarsus, she did not appear like an ordinary queen. Instead, she sailed on a magnificent ship decorated with gold and silver. The sails were purple, and the air was filled with the sweet fragrance of perfumes and flowers. Dressed like Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty, Cleopatra was surrounded by servants dressed as gods and goddesses. The people who witnessed her arrival were amazed. When Mark Antony saw Cleopatra, he was immediately fascinated. He had expected to meet a queen, but instead, he encountered a woman who possessed intelligence, confidence, and extraordinary charm. Cleopatra spoke with grace and wit, and Antony found himself deeply impressed by her personality. Their first meeting marked the beginning of one of history's most famous romances. Soon, Cleopatra invited Antony to visit Egypt, and he gladly accepted. In Alexandria, the two spent much of their time together. They attended luxurious banquets, enjoyed grand celebrations, and explored the beauty and culture of Egypt. They laughed together, shared stories, and discussed their dreams for the future. As time passed, their relationship grew stronger. Antony admired Cleopatra's wisdom and ambition, while Cleopatra appreciated Antony's courage and loyalty. Together they dreamed of building a powerful empire that would dominate the Eastern world. But their relationship was about much more than love. Politically, they needed each other. Antony relied on Egypt's wealth and resources to support his armies, while Cleopatra depended on Antony's influence to protect her kingdom from Roman threats. Their alliance made both of them stronger. In time, Cleopatra and Antony had 3 children together. They welcomed a son named Alexander Helios, a daughter named Cleopatra Selene, and another son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Cleopatra loved her children deeply and hoped that one day they would rule a great and prosperous empire. However, not everyone approved of their relationship. Back in Rome, many people viewed Antony's alliance with Cleopatra with suspicion. Among his greatest critics was Octavian, the adopted son of Julius Caesar. Octavian saw Cleopatra as a dangerous rival and accused her of influencing Antony. For her own benefit, rumors began spreading across Rome. Some claimed that Cleopatra had enchanted Antony with her beauty and charm. Others feared that the Queen of Egypt planned to control Rome itself. These accusations damaged Antony's reputation. Matters became even worse because Antony was already married to Octavia, who happened to be Octavian's sister. Yet Antony chose to remain with Cleopatra, creating a deep personal conflict between himself and Octavian. As the years passed, the rivalry between the 2 Roman leaders became more intense. Political disagreements soon turned into open hostility. Octavian used propaganda to convince the Roman people that Antony had betrayed Rome and become loyal to Egypt. Eventually, tensions reached a breaking point. Octavian declared war, not only against Mark Antony but also against Cleopatra herself. Suddenly, the future of Egypt and the fate of their dreams were hanging in the balance. Cleopatra and Antony knew that a great battle was approaching, and everything they had built together was now at risk. Their love, their power, and their empire would soon face the greatest challenge of all, and that challenge would lead to one of the most tragic and unforgettable endings in history. Chapter 5: The Fall of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra and Mark Antony had built a powerful alliance based on love, trust, and ambition. Together they dreamed of creating a great empire and protecting everything they had worked so hard to achieve. But as their enemies grew stronger, they realized that the greatest challenge of their lives was about to begin. Their biggest threat was Octavian. Determined to defeat Antony and take control of the Roman world, Octavian launched a campaign against the famous couple. He portrayed Antony as a man who had abandoned Rome and accused Cleopatra of trying to influence Roman affairs. His words convinced many Romans to support him, and soon war became unavoidable. Neither Cleopatra nor Antony was willing to surrender without a fight. They gathered their armies and prepared for a decisive battle. In 31 BCE, their forces met Octavian's army near the coast of Greece in what became known as the Battle of Actium. It would become one of the most important battles in ancient history. Antony commanded his Roman forces, while Cleopatra brought a powerful Egyptian fleet. Together they believed they still had a chance to defeat their enemy and secure their future. As the battle began, the sea was filled with warships, soldiers, and the sounds of fierce fighting. Both sides fought bravely, but Octavian's forces were better organized and more disciplined. Then something unexpected happened. During the chaos of battle, Cleopatra's fleet suddenly turned and sailed away. Historians still debate why she made that decision. Some believe she wanted to save her ships and preserve their remaining strength. Others think she feared complete destruction. Whatever the reason, Antony saw Cleopatra's departure and misunderstood her intentions, believing that she had abandoned him. Antony left the battlefield and followed her ships. Without their leader, his forces quickly collapsed, and Octavian won a decisive victory. The defeat at Actium changed everything. Broken and disappointed, Antony returned to Egypt with Cleopatra. Although they had lost the battle, their love remained strong. Cleopatra explained that she had never intended to betray him. She only wanted to protect what remained of their forces and keep hope alive. Antony understood her reasons, and together they prepared for the difficult days ahead. But Octavian was relentless. His armies advanced toward Egypt, and soon Alexandria itself was under threat. Despite the overwhelming odds, Antony and Cleopatra refused to surrender. They fought bravely, hoping for a miracle. But deep inside, they knew that the end was approaching. Eventually, Antony's remaining forces were defeated. Then tragedy struck. A false rumor reached Antony claiming that Cleopatra had taken her own life. Heartbroken and unable to bear the thought of living without her, Antony fell into despair. Believing he had lost the woman he loved most, he chose to end his own life. However, the rumor was not true. Cleopatra was still alive. When Antony learned the truth, it was already too late. Severely wounded, he was carried to the place where Cleopatra had taken shelter. There, the two lovers shared their final moments together. In one of history's most emotional scenes, Mark Antony died in Cleopatra's arms. His death left Cleopatra devastated, but even in her sorrow she remained proud and determined. She knew that Octavian would soon capture her and take her to Rome as a prisoner. He wanted to display her before the Roman people as a symbol of his victory. Cleopatra refused to allow that to happen. She had ruled Egypt with dignity, and she wanted to face her final moments with the same pride and courage that had defined her entire life. Dressed in her royal robes and wearing her crown, Cleopatra prepared herself for the end. According to ancient legends, she arranged for a poisonous snake, known as an asp, to be brought to her chamber. Rather than live in humiliation, Cleopatra chose to decide her own fate. In 30 BCE, the last queen of Egypt passed away. When Octavian entered her chamber, he found Cleopatra lying peacefully. Although she was gone, even her enemies admired her courage and determination. With her death, the age of the Egyptian pharaohs came to an end. Egypt became part of the Roman Empire, and Octavian would later become Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. But Cleopatra's story did not end with her death. Over the centuries, she became a legendary figure remembered across the world. People admired her intelligence, courage, leadership, and determination. She was much more than a beautiful queen. She was a woman who faced enormous challenges and refused to surrender to fear. Her life teaches us that true greatness comes not only from power, but also from courage, wisdom, and resilience. Cleopatra's journey was filled with victories and losses, love and heartbreak, hope and tragedy. Yet through every challenge, she remained fearless and unforgettable. Even today, more than 2,000 years later, her name continues to inspire millions of people around the world. And that is why Cleopatra remains one of the most extraordinary women in human history. Her empire may have disappeared, but her legacy will live forever. As we come to the end of this incredible journey, one thing becomes clear. Cleopatra was much more than just the last queen of ancient Egypt. She was a symbol of intelligence, courage, ambition, and determination. Throughout her life, she faced countless challenges, powerful enemies, and heartbreaking losses. Yet she never stopped fighting for her dreams, her kingdom, and the people she loved. Even in the darkest moments, Cleopatra refused to give up. Her story reminds us that true strength comes from within, and that courage can help us overcome even the greatest obstacles. More than 2,000 years after her death, Cleopatra continues to inspire people all around the world. Her legacy proves that great leaders are remembered not only for their power, but also for their wisdom, resilience, and the impact they leave behind. So, my friends, let Cleopatra's story inspire you to dream big, stay strong, and never be afraid to face life's challenges. No matter how difficult the journey may seem, always believe in yourself and never stop working toward your goals. Thank you so much for joining me on this amazing adventure through history. I hope you enjoyed this story and learned something new while improving your English listening skills. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories and English learning videos. And tell me in the comments, what do you admire most about Cleopatra? Was it her intelligence, her bravery, or her determination? I would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep learning, keep improving, and keep believing in yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.